Hello and welcome to the IMB World Series League's GT3 Championship Round 2. After a fantastic but slightly unusual opener at the Nordschleife last week, it's time to go back to a more familiar style of racing and a more familiar circuit to many as well. The Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, with all of the differences it brings to the Nordschleife, certainly. And the format, of course, returning once again. 25-minute sprint race coming up, followed by a 50-minute feature as well. It's going to be very, very entertaining indeed, with that reverse grid thrown in there as well. My name's Ewan O'Leary. I'm alongside Zach Sweeney for the evening. And Zach, it's great to be back with a more familiar format than the one that we will be experiencing 3 more times this season.
Yeah, back to normality, I suppose. I mean, I prefer the sprint rounds. I think the format definitely opens up for some pretty good racing. Maybe it was just the Nordschleife being a little bit tricky, but it was a good race that we saw for round 1 and definitely a good opener, a bit unusual from what we usually see. But yeah, it's nice to be in Silverstone, of course. British, I know, a bit biased, but Silverstone's a good circuit. I do enjoy the style of racing that we get there, and obviously 25 minutes, 50 minutes, and the reverse grid as well. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. Nordschleife has showed some good potential for what is hopefully going to be quite a close championship.
Absolutely. Let's see how those championship standings are, though, after one round. I know it's pretty inconsequential, is what I'm searching for at this stage, but it's worth showing you anyway, because it shows you where everyone finished last week, of course. Taylor Lane taking the win, ahead of Lars Devant and Janus Traub on the podium there, running all the way down to Lucas Romano, who was classified. The bottom 4 there, you can see, were not classified, but the 30 points you can see they have are the penalty points. At the start of every season, you're awarded 30 points, called penalty points, but you get those taken away from you 5 at a time for causing incidents and doing things wrong and stuff. So you've got to be careful of that. That is why everybody's got so many points after only one round, even though there were only 65 available for the round winner. It was Jim Brayton back in the Pro-Am Drivers' Championship that took it ahead of Ivo Linden and Thomas Pugh, and an all BMW lockout of the podium last time out, though I can tell you Ivo Linden has been very, very quick on the practice session, but also the qualifying session that has just taken place as well. He'll be one to look out for in the Pro-Ams. And in the Ams, it's Semban Brula who has the early championship lead ahead of Carl Pierce, Jeroen Reis and Jarmo Schustermoinen, who contributed to 4 different manufacturers being inside the top 4 at the top of the AM drivers standings. It's, as I mentioned, Zach, inconsequential at this stage, but maybe unrepresentative as well, because the Nordschleife is just such a different prospect to everything else.
Yeah, for sure. The championship lead at this stage is more a novelty. It's more a nice thing to have. Obviously, it shows that you've got a good start to the season, but it doesn't really mean a lot at this stage. You know, you're not, having a good sort of gauge as to who's going to be in the championship fight or anything like that at all. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a good thing over the course of the season. It's a nice thing to have a good start to the round, but, well, here we go for round number 2.
And a good start Stuart Reynolds is certainly going to have from there, you'd imagine. He'll be alongside Taylor Lane on the front row, with Cardiel and Lucas Romano on row 2. John Williams running out the top 5. Lars Devant, a little bit lower than his second place finish last week. He starts 6th, ahead of Hakon Lindmo. Then Chris Charlton, Juho and Harry Wills in the top 10, with Janus Traub rounding out the top 11. Surprising to see him 11th, actually, after finishing on the podium last week. Francois Perdreau will be on pole for the Pro-Ams ahead of Ivo Linden. Then it will be Simon Dodd and Chris Thacker on row 2. Timothy Vandenbroek is 5th, ahead of Dean Timms. Jim Braytonbach down in 7th after victory last week, ahead of Marcel Braytonbach. Then it is Thomas Pugh and Louis Boubier running out the top 10. Dieter de Vlaeminck and Mark Fleming will be sharing row 6, ahead of a few more that we have in the Pro-Ams, Jeremy De Boyver and Stuart Winers, a couple more on the back row. Johan Polanus will be starting the Ams from the front ahead of last week's race winner Semban Brula. Jarmo Schustermoinen and Navarro De Boyver will share row 2, with Gus Franken and James Slates behind. Carl Pierce will be 7th ahead of Jeroen Reins. Then it will be Archie Lands and Connor Botting rounding out the top 10. Timo McKeown, Jurgen Knockout, Kurt Van Hornacker and Tony van der Linden, and also Matthias de Groot rounding out the grid in the AMS as well, as we get rolling towards the back end of the circuit and towards the start of this race. I can tell you that Connor Botting, by the way, hasn't taken the start here, so he'll be starting from pit lane at best here, making up the 40 drivers who will be starting this race here this evening. It's the IMB World Series League's GT3 Championship back again, with a 25-minute sprint race to kick us off here this evening at Silverstone. Stuart Reynolds gets us underway from the front and it looks like it's going to be a good start for Kai DL on the inside line as well. A Lamborghini 1-2 through turns 1 and 2 as he displaces last week's race winner Taylor Lane. They make their way through turns 1, 2 and 3, and the slightly reduced Pro field look to be having a clean start.
Indeed so. The Pro-Am's about to get themselves underway as well. Francois Peugeot, Ivo van der Linden lead them underway. Simon Dodd trying to get a good launch as well. Looking to the outside of Abbey. Long way round, of course, but quickly gives you the inside for turn number 2. Put him on the back foot, though, as Chris Thacker tries to also get himself into the mix. Also a fairly clean start for both of our pole sitters so far. So there we go. The Am's about to get themselves going.
Well, they're a lot closer to the Pro-Ams than the Pro-Ams were to the Pros, I can tell you that much, but Johan Pullinus doesn't really care. He's in front, Sven van Brugge behind, with Devorah de Boyve, Jonas Westermoen and James Slates running 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, going through 1 and 2, down in towards turn 3, and Slates will be under pressure as that's one of the BMWs, Timothy Vandenbroek, off the road, coming out of Aintree there. You can only assume there was contact, because through turn 5, it's normally a flat-out corner.
Yeah, it usually is, and well, usually you are prompted to sort of take a bit of a slide if that is the case. First lap, of course, so those sort of things are natural through the, famous Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel curve for the first time. And Stuart Reynolds, despite only a couple of laps of practice, he told me, leads the way so far in this race. A bit of concern in terms of tyre wear, though, so that's definitely going to be something to look out for if he starts to overdrive the car a little bit too much. Silverstone naturally very demanding on this on those tyres as a circuit. Kaiziel, though, a little bit wide going through Stowe Corner. Taylor Lane sat there waiting in the wings, waiting to see any opportunity to advance himself up the field because, coming off the win in the Nürburgring, surely he can do anything.
Well, he'll certainly have a lot of confidence to move on with that and move forward with that. He's got Kai DL right in front and applying all of the pressure right now as they complete the first lap here at Silverstone. Probably going to be 13 laps here in this first race. And Taylor Lane going to make use of every one of them. Out to the outside line, in towards turn 3. It's a bit too late on the brakes. And, he's given away a bit of time there. Kai DL defends, but didn't actually have to do a lot in the end because Taylor Lane almost beat himself into that corner.
Yeah, it's easily done, for sure. If you just break a little bit too late, take a little bit too more off, more than you can chew. Obviously, with these GT3 cars, they've got the ABS to assist them, but yeah, you can still definitely break a little bit too late. Count ourselves back to the Pro-Ams, a 3-4-5-way fight for the lead so far between, the top 5 in the Pro-Am, following on with Simon Dodd changing to the BMW for Season 5 after having some relative success in the Ferrari through Aintree, and as you can see, is quite easily flat out, but with Silverstone, it just seems that sometimes it can be quite difficult to overtake. Obviously, there's a lot going on as we cut to some side-by-side action as well. A little bit further back, Ferrari, Sam van Ruler moving his way up into the lead. He is, trying to take control and rule this race early on.
He's, once again, that didn't take as long, did it? I think we're about 10 minutes in, and we've already got that one in there. Yeah, he's taken the lead away from Pullinus, who got pole position, and the race winner from 1 week ago does now lead. The AM class certainly the most manufacturally diverse, I would say, in any of the 3. Pro-Am is basically a BMW Cup, as you saw in the top 10 there. I think the top 8 right now are all BMWs. In Pro-Am, but it's keeping things very, very close. Here they are. Ivo van der Linden just in second place right now. But where's the first non-BMW? I can't find him for the moment. Well towards the back end of the top 10. You'll be able to see from this shot right here. It's that Lamborghini right in the background. I think just about sneaking into the top 10 in Pro-Am. You don't often see that.
No, considering the diversity that we've got between with the Pros and with the AMs, the Pro-Ams just for some reason opted for the BMW. It seems to be people's car of choice. If it's the quickest one for them, then fair play to them, and you've got to be in the car you feel more comfortable with. So fair play to those that did go for something a little bit different, make things a little bit interesting, make it easier to pick apart. But I guess it is no excuses in that regard. Then if you're all in the same chassis, then if you mess up, that's on you, I suppose. But yeah, at least for us, it's I don't know, it's just going into a sort of a single mate series for the Pro-Ams. But is it a good or a bad thing? I don't really know.
Well, it's I don't really know either, to be honest. But there we are. I'm not a massive fan of the way the BMW looks, if I'm honest, so maybe not. But anyway, can't do much about that. Lewis Bouvier has, of course, been promoted to Pro-Am for this season after run-outs in AM last season. and he didn't have the best of times at the Nordschleife, but still finished 7th. So did all right in the end, and he's looking to break inside the top 10 with Jeremy De Boyver just up in front of him in the Lamborghini. De Boyver's been making a bit of progress early on in this start, partly down to Timothy van der Broek going down the order, I would imagine. He's the only real big loser from this opening lap, along with Stuart Winus as well, actually, who's dropped so far down. He's in amongst the AMs right now, even as a Pro-Am driver.
Yeah, that's always the tricky thing. Obviously, we did say the AMs were a little bit closer to the Pro-Ams, and the Pro-Ams were to the Pros. But yeah, any spin and you do find yourself in a bit of traffic, which is definitely not great if you want to try and recover. It means that not only do you have to recover the time lost, you also lose a bit of time negotiating your way through traffic. James Slates versus Gus Franken as it stands, but back to the fight for the lead in the Pros. Well, not really much of a fight because Stuart Reynolds is sort of taken off to the extent of around about 1.5 seconds ahead of the Canadian of Car Grid. So not bad, too bad of a start in all fairness. Stuart Reynolds put it on pole, had a clean start, and now he seems to just trying to control side by side in the fight for 10th as well as Didier Vlaming is trying to hang on, or in fact actually try and go the long way around, all the way around the outside of Stowe. That is beautifully done. Now side by side on the run into Vale, he might just have that one done. Lewis Bouvier trying to fight back as well, but a three-way fight here for P9 overall as it stands. It's definitely not too bad of a battle. I'm sure they're going to be wanting more, but well, fight's a fight.
It certainly is. And it's a fight for best non-BMW at the moment in the field. De Boyver and De Vlaming fighting for 9th place in the 2 Lamborghinis. And that's De Vlaming going down a position as well, by the way. All one big train for the lead in Pro-Am as they begin to catch up at some of the pros. Chris Chatterton and Juho Huutonen had an issue on that last lap, and it may have been together as well, because they both dropped down at a very similar rate from pretty similar positions. So maybe there was an incident there. It's backed up everybody, really, and the fight for second in Pro-Am very much on, as Eclipse Racing Team are looking to get up into second. Ivo van der Linden right now is, well, struggling a little bit. Simon Dodd does look quicker at this stage.
He does indeed, but sometimes at Silverstone, obviously, you're not on the brakes for very long, even in these GT3 cars. It's a very fast and flowing circuit, so where do you get the moves done? I mean, you've got Stowe, which is kind of a braking zone. Village is kind of a braking zone. Brooklands maybe, but you do definitely have to have a bit of a better run than the car in front in order to seal that move, and, well, definitely isn't helped by the fact they're all in the same chassis, so no major advantage in terms of straight line speed or cornering or braking or anything like that. Obviously, some minor changes to the setup might make some differences, but yeah, for sure it is going to make things a little bit trickier for Simon Dodd to advance his way forward, or does he even want to? I mean, Ivo van der Linden took out a couple of attempts versus Francois Pedro on that last run out through Maggots and Beckett, so potentially it could be just the case that Simon Dodd's happy to sit back and maybe call themselves into contention for what could be the Pro-Am lead.
Very much the case. If they do fight too hard for second here, then all chances of a race win are going to go down the drain, so we'll see just how aggressive he is. Looking backwards from the orange BMW in the main shot there, and just in the bottom right you can see that rear view camera through the back window right now of the number 10. I do wonder what kind of an effect that traffic is going to have, though, because Chris Chatterton and Juho Huutonen are doing very similar lap times to these guys, if not even a little bit slower, despite the fact they are pro drivers, and in the pro field it is different there. As we got side by side for the lead in Am, Jon Pollenus was overtaken a few laps ago as if he was never going to see the lead again, but he's got Sven van Ruler back behind him again, although there's very nearly contact into the final corner. That was the Porsche on the inside of the Ferrari, as now De Boyver and Suster-Moinen join the party as well. We've got a four-way fight for the lead in Am.
4 different manufacturers as well: Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini and Audi. That is the diversity that we like to see in the AMs, but at the moment Pollenus, the pole sitter of course, hanging on just about a little bit wide through Village, so see Sven van Ruler try and get the ultimate up and under, see if he can put his foot to the floor and maybe have the run through the Wellington straight. Seems that the Ferrari just has enough. A couple of car lengths seems to be, yeah, it's a comfortable margin at the moment, so Van Ruler's got to be able to keep him in sight, not let the Ferrari get away from him, but very, very close. Carl Pearce also reeling himself into contention to make this a 5-way fight. Bottom right of your screen is Taylor Lane trying to move his way ahead of Cardiel, and oh my word, the lead in the AMs. Well, that is one easy way for Sven van Ruler to get himself back into the lead.
Well, that's what we call an unforced error, I think. Well, it would in tennis anyway. Anyway, that was certainly completely of his own accord, and around he goes, side by side between Taylor Lane and Cardiel, and that's a fantastic pass from the Nordschleife race winner, Taylor Lane up to second place after a move around the outside of the Lamborghini into the final chicane. He is up to second. He's got a lot of work to do to even see Stuart Reynolds again this race, but he'll be very pleased with that, and he's got even a bit of a smirk on his face.
Yeah, naturally so. Lovely addition of the driver cams. It's nice to see drivers' emotions as they're going through the race, and well, Taylor Lane definitely very, very happy about that. It's going to be hard work though. Not only has he got to try and close the gap, he's also got to try and keep the consistency and not make any errors in that BMW as to allow Car DL back through, because that Lamborghini is sticking with him 4 seconds, that fight to the lead. So, if he's going to want any chance, really, of closing up over the course of the final half of this race, it really does start now. And, well, that's also riding on the fact that the Lamborghini doesn't try to put some pressure on. Because as soon as these two start battling it, it has to be said that the race of Stuart Reynolds is then to lose.
Absolutely. It's, Lane was under a bit of pressure there into turn 3, but DL not able to get through. And we should see that gap opening now, just behind. You may have spotted it in the background of that shot. Lars de Van went off at turn 1, had to cut across the grass at turn 2, but got back on. He's still 7th, but Hakan Lindbo was able to get through into that 6th place, just behind. So there was a bit of a change back there, and there's certainly going to be some here. The Pro-Am drivers are still very much together. We're approaching half distance in this one now, and Francois Perdreau is not feeling any safer than he was earlier on. This is going to be really, really awkward as Chatterton and Hootonen are fighting for a position, but so are the Pro-Am guys for the lead as well. There's not laps between these guys. There's no blue flags waving here. It's all overall position battles, and it could be a real mess.
It could be indeed. The inter-class battles are always an awkward one because there's no point advantage for Perdreau if he overtakes Juho Hootonen in front. It's more just a case of not wanting to get backed up into the very big train of cars behind. Flash the headlights, of course, side by side. John Williams versus Lucas Romano. Well, new class, new season, but same rivalry between the pair of them. John Williams getting himself up into 4th place, and Lucas Romano hot on his heels, of course, in that Ferrari. But very interesting Pro-Am fight developing there, because all it takes is a very small mistake as well, tumbling down the order there. Who was that?
Simon Dodd.
That's a shame. From, what was that, 2nd or 3rd place?
Simon Dodd and Juho Hootonen have been together. That something has gone on here in the Pro-Ams, and it's happened at Stowe. Something major has happened, in fact. Something major has happened here. Simon Dodd has gone off the road, and he's got damage as well by the looks of things. You don't need to make a pit stop in the sprint race, but Dodd has done, because, well, he's been forced into it quite clearly by something going awry on that lap. And it involved Juho Hootonen as well, who's also in pit lane after the end of lap 6, which they've just completed there. Something has gone on in that group. I said it could get messy. I didn't expect it to happen less than half a lap later, but it's going to be a real shame for Simon Dodd, who was running in a fairly secure podium position.
Yeah, for sure. It was, I mean, I don't want to say it was bound to happen, but you definitely did have a bit of an expectation for it to happen because, yeah, you know, obviously Simon Dodd wanted to stay with the pack, and obviously Juho Hootonen wasn't too eager to give up any places to some of the Pro-Am, so naturally that did happen. Take a bit of a look as to how it did happen. You can see Juho Hootonen in the Ferrari just in behind. This is coming in.
This is earlier. So this is earlier. This is why the two of them are so far back. That's the reason. Hootonen gets late on the brakes into the final chicane and does basically enforces the gentleman's rule, I guess you could say, and waits for Chatterton to go back in front. So that's the first part of the story we were missing. That's the first piece of the puzzle. That's why they're back here and we're fighting with the Pro-Am leaders. And then, clearly, a number of laps after that, there's been an incident between Simon Dodd and Juho Hootonen that has seen them both end up in the pit lane as a result of this corner right here, Stowe corner, right up towards the end of the lap. Still just over 10 minutes to go in this race, probably 6 laps as well, so plenty of time for Ivo Linden to make his way through.
Yeah, he's got to be on it all the way through the rest of this race. He's also got to be careful of Chris Thacker just in behind as well, because, well, when you're in 2nd place in a train, you're looking forward to attack, you're looking backwards to defend. So Ivo van der Linden definitely in a bit of a hard place, but the best form of defence is probably to put some pressure on the Frenchman just in front of him and maybe get himself up into the lead. And he's got no one in front of him to really worry about. He's just got to drive the car a little bit quicker than those around him. But of course, it is going to be a bit tricky. Swapping positions still is Lucas Romano and John Williams. They run themselves side by side through Brooklands in towards Laffield. The Mercedes on the outside. That's John Williams trying to hang on to 4th place. Lucas Romano to the inside, though, able to move his way up and back ahead of his previous championship rival. However, Haken Limo and obviously Wills just in behind. They're closing the gap, which, well, might turn this couple of drivers fighting for 4th into, well, a quartet of drivers, because the 3-second gap to the fight for the podium means this is probably the best they're going to get.
It probably is. The gap opening to the top 4. No, sorry, the top 3. Even bigger now. Oh, side by side. John Williams trying to go for it in Maggots and Beckett's. You very rarely see that, and there's good reason as well. It doesn't often come off. In the end, it's pushed Romano offline, and that may allow him back through, although it's really going to give the advantage to Limbo and Wills more than anything. Here they come in the background. 3 Mercedes on the back of this Ferrari. Limbo will pull to the inside line, but won't get anywhere. He's braking early, and so Wills is going to take the opportunity around the outside at Stowe Corner, and that will give him the inside for the final chicane, and he, well, slots right in the middle of them, gets in front and gets up to 6th place as well. Good battle here for 4th place as the podium drivers get away.
Beautiful stuff from Harry Wills there, just to sort of use the track on the left-hand side and, well, saw his way around the outside. This is still the fight for the prime lead. Francois Projo versus Ivo Linden versus Chris Thacker. Ducking and diving is Linden, trying to find the space. No way through as of yet. A little bit deep into the Vale chicane. Could see Ivo Linden try and maybe force the initiative just a little bit, but yeah, not quite enough track there for him to really make the most of the mistake from the Frenchman. You can see the top 3 bumper to bumper to bumper, separated by not really that much at all. Dean Timms, Thomas Pugh as well, 4th and 5th, only a couple of seconds back as well, so wouldn't really take much for things to go astray. Ivo Linden a bit deep into turn 1 is going to invite Chris Thacker through also this fight here. Harry Wills, John Williams, Haken Limo in towards Brooklands once more, allowing Lucas Romano to get away. Harry Wills has moved his way up into 5th place. Yeah,
that was Thacker getting through on Ivo van der Linden. Now this is what happened to so Hootenan's got it wrong, and he's just clipped Simon Dodd. It's pretty unlucky, really. Hootenan just getting a little bit loose through Stowe Corner, clipping Simon Dodd, and I don't think we can particularly blame anyone and give anyone this for that. Really, it's just a case of bad luck and wrong place, wrong time for Simon Dodd.
Yeah, unfortunately, so that's just how the cookie rumbles. Unfortunately, in some of those cases, Hootenan made the mistake, and well, Simon Dodd just happened to be the victim. Fortunately, though, no one else was really involved in the reaction after that. We saw one of the BMWs get very, very close to the spinning Simon Dodd, but fortunately, no harm for anyone else involved. Maybe a bit of time loss, but other than that, all good. Back to the fight, though. 2nd place in the pros. Taylor Lane unable to really make any inroads to Stuart Reynolds, who's just running away with it more and more each lap. His tyres definitely not going off at all at the hands of the number 18 machine, but Cardiel definitely trying to hammer some pressure onto Taylor Lane, not letting him breathe at all. And while Taylor Lane was able to get the move done, Cardiel is making sure it doesn't stay that way.
Absolutely. And he's really hounding the race winner from last week. Looks at the outside line. Could have possibly gone for the dive there, but didn't. Now is he going to open things up for a dive at turn 4? He's even further away. He just forced Lane to go in a little bit deep. He gets, really loose on the power as well, just Taylor Lane. But that effectively causes Cardiel to stop on the exit there. And he's going to struggle to get down the inside of Brooklands without some good straight line speed. And he's going to struggle to get it, even with a big slipstream from that BMW up in front. DL there was in the right places, I guess, but when the car in front of you is having such issues like that on the power that you actually can't really do anything, because if you go any quicker, you'll go into the back of them, you'll push them around, and that'll be a penalty for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, you think a mistake of the driver in front is a good thing, but, well, when you don't really have the time or the space to react to it, there's not really much you can do about it other than, well, remain as it was before the mistake. Taylor Lane, though, important thing is that he is under a bit of pressure with that mistake, but yeah, if he was a little bit further back, Cardiel, he might have been able to really capitalise on it, but he was definitely, his hand was forced to back out of that one. Still, though, positive signs that maybe he's putting too much pressure onto Taylor Lane, and that's going to force him to make a couple of mistakes. Cardiel definitely does maybe have the psychological upper hand between the two of them, in this fight for second. Back to the fight for the lead, though, still 4 cars. Francois Bojo, Chris Flacker, Ivo van Linden and Dean Timms all fighting over it. Thomas Pugh not too far away as well, but still Chris Thacker, it's now his turn after getting past the Dutchman of van der Linden. It's now his opportunity to maybe have a go for the lead.
Certainly is, and he does look like maybe the strongest in this group as this race wears on as well. The longer this race goes, the better Thacker is getting in that fight in the Pro-Am lead. He did get down the inside of Ivo van der Linden, down towards turn 3, by the way. A couple of laps ago, we saw the start of that. He definitely made it through as well, and now he's right on the back of Francois Perdreau for first place in the Pro-Ams, as well as Harry Wills is trying to make his way through the Pro field right at the top as well. But it's 3 laps to go here, and still leading battles undecided. The closest of them in that Pro-Am field right now, and I'm kind of surprised that Ivo van der Linden and Dean Timms are not quite able to stay with it. They are there or thereabouts, but they're not quite there. Not close enough anyway. Not as close as Chris Thacker is. 3 laps to go here, and Francois Perdreau has basically spent the entirety of this race looking over his shoulder.
Yeah, for better or for worse, really. I mean, it's a good thing that he's been leading, but definitely not a good thing that this has not been an easy drive for him at all. You might be saying, well, no one in second place has really done anything to him. He's not been under that much pressure, but, well, no, he definitely has. He's been constantly trying to check, constantly trying to make sure he doesn't make that mistake. And, well, he's definitely been doing a good job as the lead driver. But this is sometimes where the pressure really starts to rise, and that could be where we see a crack in the defences for Peugeot. Back to the fight, though, still for the lead. Sam van Ruler versus Navarro de Boiva here. Obviously, Jeremy de Boiva, his father, I believe, up in the Pro-Ams, fighting quite well. Navarro de Boiva, not really a driver that we've often seen fighting for lead positions. The last one I can remember was all the way back at round number 1 for season 4, season 3, where him and his dad took a 1-2. Obviously, but since then, Navarro de Boiva not really had the best of luck. Now, he's in a very, very good position here to maybe get himself ahead for the lead in the AM, sorry.
I'm not sure which way the relation is, which way round it is, to be honest. So there we are. I'm glad you've gone out on a limb. Harry Wills down the inside then. That's for 4th place, and he's really been climbing the field so far in this one. Harry Wills, of course, didn't have the best of luck down at the Nordschleife. Down in 11th in the standings after not being classified, but he's up the order now, up to 4th place, and I do wonder whether we're going to get the Harry Wills we saw a couple of seasons ago, where he was challenging for a title with the likes of Eric Surenga and Sean Campbell and the like. I do wonder, is he going to be up there for a title again this season after disappointing a little bit in season 4?
Yeah, again, straight on it back with the Harry Wills slander. I love it, but potentially, I mean, we could see him put some challenges on. It just depends what Harry Wills we see. Is it the consistent, the fast, the incredible Harry Wills, or is it the one that sometimes shows some promise and then has a bit of a spin halfway through the race? Again, it depends. He really has to switch on for each and every single round this season, but definitely got the potential to do so. He's a very fast driver on his day. He just needs to have his day a little bit more often. Wasn't the best of races at the Nürburgring. He was actually doing quite well, I remember, but unfortunately didn't have the best turnout. He's trying to recover from that, though, in round number 2. Taylor Lane still trying to maintain his 2nd place versus Kai DL, as they're still separated by absolutely nothing. However, the unfortunate thing is that for Kai DL, time very much not on his side. They're approaching the penultimate lap of this race, and, well, it's definitely going to be quite close.
Yeah, when Taylor Lane got through at him, it looked like DL was by far inferior to that BMW that is now ahead of him, but that has proved to not be the case whatsoever here. The fight for 2nd and 3rd very much still alive and well. It's a better line through Magnussen, Beckett and through Chapel. DL with a much better run onto the Hangar Straight. The end of the Hangar Straight, unfortunately, doesn't present a massive braking zone for him, but it could still present a chance. He's just not quite close enough to make a move. There'll be 1 lap to go after this one, and it's going to be the last chance really for DL, who, if he wants to get through here, just needs to dive it somewhere, because he is close enough in 1 or 2 of these areas. Maybe not there into the final chicane, but there have been chances we've seen when he's been close enough to have a go and he's decided to be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, well, coming on to the final lap of this race then. Stuart Reynolds leading them by 7.1 seconds, so time definitely is running out for the Canadian, who's going to have to try something a little bit wide, maybe through Abbey. Could see Kai DL maybe close the gap just a little bit No, not quite close enough into turn number 3 at Village. He's practically pushing the BMW. Is there any way through? Not really. There we go. The move maybe into the loop. Has a bit of a look. Scares Taylor Lane offline. Now the Lamborghini has the way through. Shorter line through. Up the inside. Up into second place. And what all he had to do was deter Taylor Lane offline just a little bit. Now the pressure is on for him to keep it because Taylor Lane, he's not going to like the way that he messed that up. Going into the loop. Now demoted to third place. Well, 2/3 of the lap left to go. There's the send for Taylor Lane. You can tell he wants that second place.
Well, that was the kind of dive that DL needed to do. Maybe laps ago he could have gotten that done, but decided to be cautious, wait for the last lap, and Taylor Lane is not going to let him go. There's the old stop, finish straight. Still, nearly half a lap to go here for Stuart Reynolds as time has now elapsed here in the sprint race. It's very, very close in the other two leading battles, by the way. Francois Pedro clinging on from Chris Thacker in Pro-Am. Kaidiel clinging on from Taylor Lane for second overall. And Sam Van Ruler clinging on from Navarra de Boiva for the lead in Am. It's going to be a very, very exciting last lap. And Navarra de Boiva does get down the inside at turn 3. He is now through. And that is quite a move to be making at this stage. He'll have to defend though in towards Brooklands. Here comes Sam Van Ruler trying to take his second win of the season already. It's a big defence from Navarra de Boiva. He sends the Porsche wide and the Lamborghini will stay in front. It's going to be de Boiva's for now with Jarmo Sastamoinen joining in as well. In the next couple of moments, the top 3 in Am are going to come across the line together. But entirely on his own is Stuart Reynolds. He's going to take the win here on his own. The first win of the season for him in the sprint race at Silverstone. Taylor Lane gets second with a last lap pass on Kaidiel, who did throw everything at it right towards the end, but he couldn't quite do it. Further behind, Francois Pedro has got a bit of a gap. What about Chris Thacker? Will he be able to get close enough? He's not quite. He needed a few more laps, really. But he's been at this distance for most of the race now, and he hasn't been able to do anything. He goes wide, and Ivo Linden goes through. So that's a bizarre one. Pedro, Linden and Thacker will take the podium places there in Pro-Am, but it's going to be a right brawl for first in Am, you'd imagine. Navarra de Boiva taking it on the final lap. Has he done enough to seal it from Sam Van Ruler? It looks like he might have done. Through Stoke Corner they go into the final chance. It's going to be Navarra de Boiva to come through the final couple of corners, and he will win the sprint race at Silverstone just about in the Am category, ahead of Sam Van Ruler and Jarmo Sastamoinen. What a very close race that was.
Beautifully done, Navarra de Boiva. What a story that is. Connor Botting able to get himself back onto circuit. He's fighting with Johan Reigns for 7th place in the AMs as it stands. A bit of a force feedback issue, we were told before the race, or him start from the pit lane, but he's trying to claw his way up. No chances on the run to the line, so it's going to be Johan Reigns from Connor Botting in P8, and that is an unfortunate way to start his season. We didn't see him at round number 1. But unfortunately, yeah, P8 is the best that he could do. But what a race one that was. I mean, the domination that we saw from Stuart Reynolds, the fight for second in the pros, the insane fight for the lead in the Pro-Ams, and the narrative that it was for the AMs. Navarra de Boiva taking his first win of the season. Sam Van Ruler was close, but unfortunately not quite close enough in order to seal victory.
Not quite, and just missed out by less than half a second at the end. We'll get those race results to you and tell you quite who finished where in that very, very frantic finish. A number of battles for podium places in all 3 categories. Settled right at the very end. Simon Dodd already in our YouTube chat to tell us just how disappointed he is for that one. And Juho Huttinen as well, apologising to Pro-Am drivers who got involved as a result of that. No hard feelings between the two of them though, which is good to see. And yeah, good level of respect there, because Simon Dodd could very well, or I know a lot of drivers in that situation that Simon Dodd's in right now would be pretty angry about Juho Huttinen, even though, you know, it is one of those things really.
Yeah, you know, mistakes happen. Obviously, you could definitely see it from Simon Dodd's perspective. If he was a little bit angry, I mean, he was fighting for what could have been a potential lead, at the very least, maybe a podium for Simon Dodd. But I guess that's the good thing when you've got sort of good relations with the drivers. You know, they're all up for a bit of banter. They're all here for a bit of fun. Obviously, there's prizes and things to be won. Obviously, the paid entry thing and things like that. You know, they're not here for free, but they are here to win. But also, you know, they've still got some good relationships between each other, which is always a nice thing to see. It just means that when accidents do happen, it's not, you know, people are going to be down each other's throats. There's not going to be fights sparking in Discord servers or anything like that, which is definitely a good thing to boast. And Well, as disappointing it is for Simon Dodd, he's just going to take it on the chin, and well, I guess he's now just got to drive faster in race 2 to make up for it.
Yeah, certainly that is what he is going to attempt to do. So that's race 1, and it was won by Stuart Reynolds by nearly 8 seconds by the end there. A very, very good victory from him. But as I mentioned, battles all the way to the line and all throughout the field. They're in all 3 categories as well. So there we are. It's race 1 complete. Kurt Van Harnacker for the moment, by the way, is showing as still being out there on the track doing nothing, but he has finished the race. So iRacing is currently having a real problem with that. But so that's why we're not able to show you those results just for the moment. Otherwise, we would do. But there we are. We do have them now. So they've been finally sorted, and we can show you quite who finished where in a little bit more detail. Stuart Reynolds, as I mentioned, winning the race. Taylor Lane just about holding off Cardiel with that late repass on the last lap. Harry Wills just beating Lucas Romano and John Williams to the line. Hakan Limbo just lost a little bit of time towards the end of that race to finish 7th. Jonas Trout finishing down in 8th. Ahead of Chris Charlton, Lars Devan and Juha Huutonen, both finishing many laps down at the end of that race. Lars Devan, just about getting over the half distance mark there. Juha Huutonen not quite, but not good races for either of them. In the Pro-Am field, it was Francois Perdreau who just about held off Eva van der Linden and Chris Thacker on the podium, and Dean Timms as well, all of them within 3 seconds, ahead of Jim Breitenbach, who got through the order there to finish in the top 5. Thomas Pugh, Jeremy de Boiver still within 10 seconds there. Marcel Breitenbach finishing 8th ahead of Lewis Boubier and Didier Vlaminck. Then it was Timothy van der Broek, Stuart Wines and Mark Fleming on the lead lap. Simon Dodd finishing 4 laps down as a result of that incident at Stowe Corner we saw earlier on. In the Anfield, it was very close all the way to the line, but Navarro de Boiver with that last lap pass, getting ahead of Sven van Ruler and Jamas Estemoinen, 3 drivers within a second. James Slates and Carl Pearce inside the top 5, with Gus Franken 6th, ahead of Jerome Rains. Connor Botting recovering from pit lane to finish 8th, ahead of Kurt Van Harnacker and Archie Lands, the top 10. Jon Pullinus recovering from that spin from the lead to finish 11th. Tony van der Linden finishing 12th, ahead of Jürgen Knockart and Matthias de Groot, who were both 1 lap down, with Timo McKeown bringing up the rear. Well, that is it for race 1. Make sure you stay with us though. Race 2, the 50-minute feature with a reverse grid is coming up, so make sure you stay with us here. We'll look forward to your company there, but for now, we'll be taking a short break and we'll be returning in a few moments' time. Welcome back to Silverstone for round 2 of the IMB World Series League's GT3 Championship. Here, after the first round at the Nordschleife, it's a very, very different field. 25-minute sprint race followed by the 50-minute feature, of which we're now halfway through. We've got the 50-minute race coming up, the 25 minutes previously already gone. Yeah, very much looking forward to this second race. My name's Joe Leary alongside Zach Sweeney, even still. I'm not sure really what we learnt too much about that first race, Zach, really, but it's going to be interesting to see how this reverse grid really affects the race, because it is bound to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw in race 1 that there was a couple of difficulties in terms of overtaking. I mean, it was possible for sure, but not to a crazy extent. So it'll be interesting to see those that obviously finish towards the front in race 1, how they do when they sort of go towards the back end of the top 10 here in race number 2, how able they are to work their way back towards the front of the grid. Obviously, the pit stop in the mix as well a little bit later on in the race. These cars are limited in terms of their fuel tank, so well, not only do the rules say they have to come into the pit lane, the car's fuel tank also says that they have to come in at some point for a top up of fuel. So that is definitely an added measure into the mix that could aid in some passes a little bit later on in the race. But again, we'll have to wait and see, because the general consensus in race 1, bar the pros, which just saw Stuart Reynolds run off with it, was some fairly sizable trains for some decent positions. So yeah, it seems that overtaking is going to be something that is going to have to be something that the drivers think very, very carefully about over the course of race 2.
And I don't know about you, but I found that drivers were finding it quite difficult to overtake really around here. I do find this often with circuits like this and GT3s with the BOP and everybody running so close in terms of lap times. It does actually end up being a hard place to overtake, which you don't really associate Silverstone with being one of those places that you can't really find a way through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a fantastic circuit. I love Silverstone. But yeah, typically, the overtakes come in sort of higher downforce cars and things like that, I suppose. But definitely in terms of GT3s, you're not really on the brakes for very long. As I said in race 1, you've got Stowe, which is kind of a braking zone, Vale, which is again kind of a braking zone, Village is probably the hardest one on the circuit, Brooklands maybe. But beyond that, you haven't really got many points where you're actually off the back of a long straight into a very heavy braking zone where the brakes make a lot of the difference. Around Silverstone, it is just a very flowing, natural circuit where, while it's great fun to drive, it definitely makes it a little bit frustrating when you're trying to work your way through on the car in front, which definitely does mean that you have to think about it a little bit more and try and set it up, or just sort of hope that the car in front makes a bit of a mistake, or maybe your car itself has a bit of advantage, which, well, from the Pro-Ams probably won't have because they're mostly in BMWs.
Absolutely, as we've already mentioned in the past. So that's the practice session complete. Now we're into the race, and we're ready to go racing for the first time. It's going to be a top 9 reversed in the pros because only 9 drivers made the required amount of laps to be part of the reverse grid. So it's Chris Chatterton from the pole with Johannes Trapp alongside. Then it will be Hakan Lindmo and John Williams on row 2. Lucas Romano 5th, ahead of Harry Wills. Then it will be Kyle Taylor Lane and Stuart Reynolds, who were all on the podium in race 1. Juho Hooton and James Pearce both failed to make the amount of laps required to benefit from the reversed grid. In Pro-Am, we did get 10 with the required amount of laps. We got quite a few more. So we've got Didier de Vlaeminck on pole, ahead of Lewis Boubier. Then it's Marcel Breitenbach in the 3rd place, ahead of Jeremy de Boiver. Thomas Pugh is 5th, ahead of Jean Breitenbach, not far behind the other Breitenbach. Then it is Dean Timms and Chris Thacker, Eva van der Linden and Francois Peugeot in the side of the top 10. Timothy Vanderbroek just missed out on the reverse grid with Stuart Riders. Then we've got Mark Fleming and Simon Dodd as well, who will be starting this one from the back. Archie Lands will be starting the Anfield from the front with Kurt van Hoornacker. Then it'll be Connor Botting up there. He'll be one to watch alongside Jerome Reigns. Gus Franken will be 5th ahead of Carl Pearce and James Slates. And Yamas Sastamoinen, Sembrula and Navarro de Boiver all on the podium last race, down there in 8th, 9th and 10th. Jorn Polonus will be with them as well in 11th, with Tony van der Linden 12th. Jurgen Lockhart, Matthias de Groot and Timo McKeown round out the 40 car grid, starting here for race 2 at Silverstone. Looking like a good grid and a reverse grid once again in the IMB World Series GT3 Championship. The more familiar style of racing is back here at Silverstone. What on earth is going to take place over the course of the next 50 minutes? Chris Chatterton is going to have the virtual pen, I guess, for the first part of the story. Let's see if the lights go on and they will go out. It's Mercedes all over the front of the field. Chatterton as well as Lindmo on the inside line looking for second place. Johannes Trout pushed to the outside line through turns 1 and 2. And there's another Mercedes trying to come through in the form of John Williams as well. It's the Norwegian to the outside early on. He can't make his way through. Williams will make his way to the outside here at turn 3. They'll go side by side ever so briefly. It won't come off for them. And in towards the first corner go the Pro-Ams as well as they get underway for their start.
Indeed, so Didier Vlaeminck leave them off underway. Lewis Boubier not with the best of starts, so you can see Marcel Breitenbach looking to the outside through Abbey, not quite the corner you can really make anything stick, so it seems to be a fairly comfortable start for the top 3, side by side potentially, with Jeremy de Boiver and Thomas Pugh fighting over 4th. Lewis Boubier a little bit tentative in his turning in towards Village, so not the best way through. The AMs, though, get themselves underway, and it seems to be, well, sheer domination for Archie Lands out in front.
Well, it's a good place to be on pole, and all 3 pole sitters have shown that. Connor Botting down the inside of Kurt van Hoornacker, and that's going to be second for Connor Botting. He really will be one to watch during this race after starting from the back in race 1, still managed to get himself up to 8th place. Oh dear, it's all hell has broken loose there. Out of Aintree, Stuart Rhinus and Eva van der Linden both involved, with Timothy Vanderbroek as well. There's clearly been a big incident in Pro-Am involving a number of high-end Pro-Am cars as well. I think Tony van der Linden has also had he's actually fine. But Stuart Winers and Eva van der Linden certainly off the road. And van der Linden and Vanderbroeks were championship contenders last season. This is big news early on in round 2.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not going to be too happy about that one. Fortunately, they've still got a long way left to go if they want any chance of recovering it, but definitely is seeming very unlikely for them to do so. So yeah, race 2 does seem to be a bit of a write-off. Unfortunately for them, they have got the drop scores where their worst round gets cut off. But, well, to take that in round 2 is definitely suboptimal, because that means you have to nail the rest of the season from here all the way to round 10. Following on the fight for his second place in the Pros. Johannes Trapp, though, going very wide through Abbey, invites both Mercedes of John William and Haken Limbo through. Still going incredibly slowly. Was that a slowdown? Was it just a mistake? Because, well, it seems that he's caused a whole lot of turmoil there as they all fight their way through.
It must have been a slowdown. It absolutely must have been. Well, he's still slowing down. Johannes Traub here has had real problems. And is he stopped even at turn 3? He could very well be, actually. He's certainly going very slowly as Harry Wills makes his way down the inside of Kai DL. Can't do it, and so James Pearce will come right from the back, almost to the front here. He's looking for a 6th position, right from 11th where he started. It's side by side between the two teammates, and they'll go side by side almost in towards Woodcourt as well. Wills will continue in that position, but Johannes Traub has lost so much time there. I mean, I did agree initially with your theory of slowdown, but now I've got no idea, because that is more than a slowdown.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, usually, yeah, if you continue on, it sort of ticks back over and increases again. But yeah, definitely not to that extent. Maybe a bit of hardware failure. Maybe to a big extent, he's not putting enough fuel in the car. Maybe he's just not topped up. I don't know. There are so many different reasons. It would be a bit silly if it is the fuel issue. Maybe some hardware issue. I don't know. We don't know. It's just a bit of a peculiar one in all fairness. But the fight continues. The show must go on, and the fight definitely is here. Harry Wills trying his best to keep now Pearce at bay. Taylor Lane just a little bit further back as well, in towards Stowe Corner. And, well, as we predicted, it's definitely turning itself into a bit of a train here for the fights in the Pros.
Let's have a little look at some replays from earlier on in the race. We're barely 5 minutes in, but a lot has gone on so far. This is, well, that was Harry Wills. We'll get that in a couple of moments' time. This is Timothy Vanderbroek, and this is what happened in the Pro-Am field on lap 1. He's just up the inside there of Ivo van der Linden, and they clip one another. Oh my goodness, that's a big hit for Vanderbroek. Not such a big hit for Ivo van der Linden, who also did spear into Stuart Winers. That was the other car you could see. The other BMW you could see just in the background of that shot. It was another case of another Pro-Am car being taken out by someone else's spin and just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, really.
Yeah, again, that really is what it boils down to. It's just a bit of bad luck, unfortunately, getting caught in someone else's spin, but that's what happens at the start of races. Everyone's so close together, cold tyres, etc., etc. So it is very difficult, in all fairness. So yeah, for sure, not great for those involved, but yeah, it's done and dusted now. All you can do is, well, take control of the situation now and do the best job that you can. James Pearce, we're following on with him in his pursuit to get past his teammate of Harry Wills, just in front, of course. And well, there, all of them trying to move their way up the field, but no one really can. It's just stagnated at the moment. James Pearce, as it stands, is well, it does seem to be the quicker of the two cars. In terms of Silverstone in itself, though, it seems the BMW and the Lamborghini has had the advantage in terms of pace. A little bit further back, though, the fight for the lead in the Pro-Ams. Didier Vlaming and Lewis Boubier going side by side. Well, the outside line through Brooklyn didn't quite pay us for Lewis Boubier, but the long way around through Luffield for Didier Vlaming allows him to close the gap back up again.
It's certainly close for the lead in Pro-Am right now, although Lewis Boubier does look that little bit quicker. The driver promoted from a good run in the Anfield last season is now up to the Pro-Ams, and he's doing a very good job as well on the back of the Lamborghini, side by side for 6th place as well, between Thomas Pugh and Chris Thacker. That'll be for 5th place in that case. And Jim Breitenbach as well getting involved. It was briefly side by side. Pugh still inside the top 5, and everybody's still very close together in the Pro-Ams. It's almost as if the top 10 or so in this class are the same pace, pretty much. And so whichever order they start in, they're pretty much going to stay like that, because they're all running the same lap times anyway.
Yeah, very true. There's, when you're running the same pace, no one can gain or lose anything relative to each other. And, well, it's nice to see everyone really, really competitive. But a circuit that's already a little bit difficult to overtake, it does make for just long trains of action that, well, I guess the mistakes then really do start to make the difference. And, well, if you can be the more consistent one, chances are you might see yourself slowly but surely working your way towards the front. But definitely a very competitive Pro-Am field. Just would be nice if they could, start showing some side-by-side moments in that fight for the lead. Lewis Boubier gave it a good go at this corner on the previous lap, but, well, at the moment it seems that Dino Vanlin has got all the answers to any questions that Lewis Boubier asks him as it stands. Back to the fights in the AMS, as Sam van Ruler is trying to move his way up the field after narrowly missing out on the victory in race number 1. He's trying to, well, at the moment, pick each other off. There is Johan Polonus just in front of him. He sends the move in towards turn number 3 at Village. Now outside line for the loop. So close to contact between the pair of them. Sam van Ruler trying to go to the ultimate switchback. However, the Ferrari parks it on the apex, which means the Porsche can't really gain much as they work their way now through the Wellington Straight. It's going to take a lot of slipstream and, well, a bit of bravery on the brakes.
Well, he does need to be a lot later on the brakes here to make this move. Polonus here has gained quite a number of positions so far. Sam van Ruler hasn't been really going up forward very quickly, but now he does have a place. He's up to 7th. Oh, that's quite a dive from your own reins. And your Polonus goes around at Luffield one corner later from the moment where he went around in race 1. That is some poetic irony there, I'm afraid, if that's the phrase. And he drops well outside the top 10. He'll drop positions like no tomorrow, and that is a real shame. It didn't look like Polonus' fault either.
Oh, that is a real big shame for Polonus. Obviously, pole position in race number 1. Couldn't quite convert that to a race victory at all. Not even a podium, I don't think. So, yeah, definitely not been the best of days. And now it's just gotten even worse for him in race 2. But yeah, it just sucks even more. There we go, the move to the inside for the Mercedes. Harry Walls moves his way past Kai DL in his pursuit potentially of Lucas Romano just in front. Haken Limbo rounds off the podium, and this has really turned itself into a fight for third. Chris Chatterton from John Williams separated by a couple of seconds. Then John Williams to Haken Limbo is about 1.5 seconds. So this train that we're seeing right now is the fight for third. And well, it didn't seem that DL really put up much of a fight versus Harry Walls. Might just be a case of trying to help his teammate out, and maybe Harry Walls, being the quicker of the two drivers at the moment, seems to be the one maybe to lead the charge.
Well, that might well be what they've decided, but let's wait and see. You might notice as well, by the way, that James Pearce is gone from this group. He went away 3 minutes ago. I don't know if I'm just forgetting an incident that I saw literally 3 minutes ago, but I don't think so. He's clearly been off somewhere because he's down in pit lane getting repairs along with 2 other drivers, 2 other Pro-Ams after that incident on lap 1. Juho Huttinen, unfortunately, is indeed confirmed out of this race. I think Timothy Vanderbroek also confirmed out of this race now as well, although we are seeing some longer repairs for some, and they're continuing on with this race, so or at least trying to. So it's very much a case of just getting what you can from this one now, as Lewis Boubier is very much on the back of Gino Vanlin. Gets very close at the front of Pro-Am right now. But once again, not really changing. As we mentioned with Silverstone earlier on, Lewis Boubier having connection problems, but it is hard to overtake around here. Everybody's so well matched that, there's no openings really here, apart from this one.
Yeah, well, that's brave. Definitely side by side through Magnus Beckett. Simon Dodd trying to move his way up past Gene Brayton back. They're still side by side going into the final right hander now through Chapel Curve. How they've managed to do that, I don't know. Great mutual respect between the pair of them. It is Gene Brayton back, however, that does get the advantage. Fleming and Pugh behind just had to watch and, well, marvel at what an incredible side by side moment that was. Now it continues up the hill in towards Stowe. Simon Dodd trying to look to the outside. Side by side as Thomas Pugh sends the move to the inside of Fleming as well through Stowe corner. Now in towards Vale. Defensive potentially goes Brayton back, pulling it out to the middle of the circuit. Simon Dodd later on the brakes side by side just in behind as Thomas Pugh and Fleming continued their battle. Fleming back up in front for the moment. Thomas Pugh, however, still fighting. It's a case of who can, well, get that car back up to full throttle as they run their way through club. And, well, Thomas Pugh having to relinquish that top 10 place back to Fleming, who, well, great bit of mutual respect between all four in that little skirmish for half a lap.
It certainly was, although I do think that Gene Braytonback and Thomas Pugh have gotten together at some point, and they've gone off the road as well, because they were running a bit further up than that earlier on in this one. And maybe Mark Fleming has had issues as well, because he did 2 minute 5 last time around. So there may have been some problems in the middle of the Pro-Am field that is not nearly as numerous as we saw even a few moments ago. Further back down here, we've got the likes of Nora de Boiver and Jomas Astamoinen right involved in the battles. That's one of the Pro-Am BMWs just in behind as well of Stuart Winers, who is all over the back of him there, and will have a real job on getting through these AM drivers. And it's going to be a very awkward one as well. These battles are for overall positions, of course, but these AM drivers don't really want to let or be overtaken. And the Pro-Ams really would rather they just got out the way as soon as possible, but that's not really possible. And now you can see the opposite happening. The AMs behind the Pro-Ams. Archie Lands and Connor Botting trying to have a battle for the race lead here. Thomas Peel, Mark Fleming are fighting in front of them.
Yeah, similar situation like we saw with Juho Ruutunen and obviously the Pro-Ams obviously in race number 1. Similar situation, we saw how that one turned out, so hopefully this one's going to be a little bit different. But who was that off? Was there some smoke kicked up off the exit chapel? I'm not entirely sure, but back to the fight here. Haken Limo versus Harry Wills. He's managed to dispatch of Lucas Romano into the loop. No way through. Oh, there's a send. Lucas Romano now 3 wide on the exit. As Cardiel gets up in the mix. Lucas Romano spun round by Harry Wills off the exit of the loop, now through Aintree. And that was just a very, very awkward display. The Lucas Romano going for an audacious send to the inside of Harry Wills there. Don't really know where the space was. Cardielsa, thank you very much, and took to 4th. But yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, they just all started out of nowhere, really.
You don't see Harry Wills agitated very often, but that was one of the occasions. He was flashing the lights furiously on the exit of turn 4 there. And, you could have a guess as to why as well. That is Lucas Romano down the order as a result. And he's gone back to pit lane as well, clearly with damage. Simon Dodd is also in pit lane. Don't think that's strategical. Think there may be damage there. And speaking of damage, Timothy Vanderbroek, by the way, has got over 1 hour of repairs to make. So he won't be rejoining this race. Mainly because he's still going to be repairing his car when it ends. So that's a real disappointment for the Pro-Am driver who sees the end of his day very, very early. But that was an interesting one. Romano with a big dive down the inside of Harry Wills. Not sure if Wills purposely turned across the Ferrari there or not, but Romano certainly found himself to the outside. DL found himself with 2 places, and that was all very interesting and, not what we normally see, especially from Wills.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it was just an awkward one, unfortunately, and it just did all start with that send to the inside from Lucas Romano, and what followed it, yeah, it happened, let's put it that way. Following on the fight for the lead between Didier Blaming and Lewis Boubier, still no movement between the pair of them, although Lewis Boubier is looking a little bit menacing, that BMW. Nice to see a Lamborghini leading the charge in the Pro-Ams for a change, obviously for this evening. So Didier Blaming, after the reverse grid benefit, is able to now maybe seize control of this race. However, Lewis Boubier is going to try and shake off his 2 woes that stemmed at the beginning of last season. We'll take another look as to what happened, and well, there you go. That was brave.
It was, and Wills didn't do a lot wrong. Romano backed himself into the wall, which might have done more damage than the contact itself. But it was quite a dive. I think Romano was more focused on Kai DL behind than he was on Wills in front. I don't think he intended to dive Harry Wills there, but in his defence of that position, he ended up diving Wills and ended up off the road.
Yeah, it's a case of you didn't really mean to do it. You were just trying to cover your bases and not get overtaken by the car behind, but sort of forced the initiative as soon as he pulled himself alongside Harry Wills, and on the exit drifting out a little bit too wide, clipping his rear right, and well, around he went, unfortunately. And yeah, it happens, and that's unfortunately 2 race days in a row for Lucas Romano where things haven't really gone to plan. So while he has definitely got potential, it's just going to need to be a tidy evening all the way throughout the session. A little bit wide off the exit of Laffield. However, a good exit for Didier Blaming sees him deter the offence from Lewis Boubier. Still very, very close in this Pro-Am fight. Archie Lands versus Connor Botting, still separated by about less than a second as well. So I think they've managed to dispatch of the Pro-Am traffic. Yeah, I think so. But now they've got a bit of clear air. Archie Land has been able to pull out that gap to Connor Botting to over a second. But fair play to Connor Botting, to be fair, after some issues. Didn't really know what class he was going to be in going into this race. Managed to get himself into the AMs. Then obviously the force feedback issue just before race number 1. Managed to get P8 there. And well, now he's fighting for 2nd place in race number 2. He's definitely been able to recover well.
And it's certainly better than last week as well, where he finished down in 13th at the AM race there. So that wasn't ideal at all. Meanwhile, for the lead in Pro-Am, it's very much on here. Just past quarter of an hour into this one. Lewis Boubier very close behind Didier Blaming for the lead. Outside lining towards the final corner. He's not going to be able to get through there, and Blaming is certainly going to see him coming with the colour of those wheels. Goodness me. But over the line at the end of lap 8. And still the same pressure being applied. The top 6 together in Pro-Am. That is just staying so close once again. You get the feeling it's going to be one of those races, as these things often tend to be. They're going to be settled in the pit stop phase again.
100%, yeah. No really way through. That's late on the brakes from Lewis Boubier, closing the gap. Thought he was going straight into the back of the Lamborghini, trying to set up a wide line through the loop. Not really a move that's quite worked so far, but managing to close the gap. He's got to hope that BMW has got the straight line speed to challenge for the lead. Still having a couple of connection problems, but well, here's Harry Wills back on the back of his teammate. He's going to try and recover as best he can. Is he going to go for the move in towards Maggins and Beckett? He's going to have a good old look to the left-hand side. Is the Lamborghini give that one up? Yeah, of course he is. Yeah, they're not, obviously his teammates, they're not going to be that silly to run their way side by side and risk both of their races again, as happened through the loop. But for sure, this race is going to be one settled in the pit lane because it's just so difficult to overtake. Kind of got really no choice. The undercut, the overcut, though, definitely going to be an interesting question to ponder as to which one's going to take the advantage going into the pit stop phase. There's a bit of a send there from the BMW side by side through Brooklyn.
Oh, too much of a save from your own reins, and Navarro de Boiva will come straight back at him. And Yama Sustermoinen will get through as well, right round the outside in towards Loffield. So, in the attempts of gaining one place, your own reins has just lost one there, although he will be running side by side now with Ivo van der Linden just in behind. That's not a battle for position, of course. The orange BMW just behind is a Pro-Am car and is certainly faster than these guys as well, looking for a way through. But this is the battle for 8th place, and it's between a lot of the drivers who are contending for the win in AM. The gap from top to bottom in these categories is very, very small, and it's making it very hard to come through the field in these reverse grids.
Yeah, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing is up for debate. Obviously, it's nice to see everyone so close, and well, means that pretty much anyone given the opportunity can succeed. But it does make for some awkward shenanigans in the reverse grid races because some of the quote-unquote faster guys struggle to find their way through as well. We're very clearly seeing trains just forming up and down the field, which obviously isn't what the drivers like to see because just look at this in the Pro-Ams. What was it, the top 5 to Dean Timms as well, so just the top 6 separated by absolutely nothing, all queuing behind D-Dave Lamink, who there go that maybe the send from Jeremy de Boiva to the inside of Brayton back. Thought that was going to be a similar situation. Chris Thacker trying to barge his way through as well, just in the background. And I guess in trains like this, while things plateau for quite a while because everyone's at the same pace, as soon as one driver goes for a move, the concertina effect sort of bunches everyone back up again, and that's where you can really get some very chaotic action start to happen.
Well, that's Chris Thacker and Jeremy de Boiva, who it was really kicking off between, actually at the loop, and now de Boiva has been displaced. Chris Thacker up to 4th place now, and that is a very strong place to be for the driver that finished 2nd in the first race. Of those who is having to come through the field, he's doing the best in Pro-Am, certainly in AM. Sten van Ruler's doing the best really in both races. He's just gotten through on Carl Pearce. This was the 1 and 2, let's not forget, at the North side. They're battling 4 and 5 right now here in the race at Silverstone. That is Carl Pearce on the bottom right-hand side, but he's just been overtaken by Van Ruler, and I think he'll be lucky to hang on to the back of the Porsche really over the next few laps.
Yeah, for sure. Sven van Ruler has really got some good pace. Not to say Carl Pearce hasn't, but that Porsche does look pretty good in terms of its pace. 2nd place, obviously, over the course of race number 1, and has been able to make the places up 12, as it's saying for Sven van Ruler. I think that's overall, not necessarily just in his AM class, but yeah, really working his way up through the field quite well. Got a bit of a gap up to Gus Franken, but 2.8 seconds with, well, just under half an hour left to go. Definitely doable for the Porsche. So we'll have to wait and see as to how he does, because if he can keep up a podium place for all 3 races so far this season, definitely not going to be complaining with that one too much. This is Stuart Reynolds on the back of Car DL, looking to the inside. Obviously, Stuart Reynolds dominated race 1, and it just goes to prove that, well, things can change very quickly. And Round is the race 1 winner through Brooklands, and well, maybe just getting too close to the rear end of DL that he had to put on a bit too much brake pressure to avoid him going through Brooklands as well. Even more contact in the AMS as Navarro de Boiva gets scared off the circuit.
Well, I think there was contact rather than him being scared, actually. But your own Reigns was the one. Then it's Ivo Linden, who's also in here, and he's going to be really frustrated as well. He was pretty frustrated in race 1. I think he was unhappy with Chris Thacker at the end of that one. And was just questioning a little bit on some of his decisions during the race. But now he's right in the mixer here, and he's just, it was a thankless task really, just trying to work your way through in this particular position. Oh, round goes one of the Lamborghinis. That was De Boiver. Navora De Boiver's gone around, I think. And through goes Pullinus and Sastamoinen. There is Navora De Boiver. Well, it's all going off in all of the categories, really. Because, well, that was odd. Seemed De Boiver just went round on his own there.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've seen a driver make a mistake. Oh, that's sketchy. I honestly thought Chris Thacker was trying to do something there into Maggots. Fortunately, that's not the case. He's tucked up behind Marcel Brayton back in the fight for the podium. Jeremy De Boiver and Dean Timms just in behind as well. Unfortunately for Chris Thacker, not really able to get the best of exits off Chapel Curve. However, a good exit just in the background there between the BMW and the Lamborghini. They're running their way side by side in towards Stowe. There's Dean Timms looking to the outside versus Jeremy De Boiver, maybe trying to get the up and under. Not really much circuit to use in that run in towards Vale. Chris Thacker trying to look to the inside as well in towards Vale. Harry Wills versus Hakan Lindmo as he tries to recover it from the early skirmish with Lucas Romano, trying to promote himself onto the podium. And, well, you have to say he's looking pretty good in order to get himself onto the podium into Brooklands. And, well, not quite close enough on that particular occasion, but definitely putting the pressure on.
Oh, I thought he would have gone for that, but decided not to. Now what about the over and under into Luffield? Well, Lindmo making sure there's no opportunity for that. Coming out of the corner. They'll be very close together, but no way through for Harry Wills. It's still very close in Pro-Am. Here's Lewis Boubier right on the back of Didier Vlaming, but now the battle for third really kicking off, and Marcel Breitenbach finally has been displaced. Chris Thacker goes through. Now Jeremy De Boiver's going to go through, and Dean Timms might well go through as well as a result of this. Once one comes through, all of them are going to. Not Dean Timms though. He has to avoid Breitenbach in the braking zone. He does very well to keep the car going straight and out the wall, but he does drop to 7th place.
I'm surprised he's only dropped one place. In all fairness, that was so sketchy. He had to avoid Breitenbach all the way to the right-hand side of the circuit. Was a bit too eager on the brake pedal and braking a little bit too late for his liking. As soon as he got over the curb, the car just wasn't stopping. And, well, fair play for recovering it that well, and fair play for not hitting into anyone. Harry Wills ducking and diving, looking to the right-hand side of the shot, left-hand side of the circuit, inside line for Vale, and up into 3rd place versus Hakan Lindmo. And, well, that was an easy move. In all fairness, Lindmo didn't fight that one too harsh because, well, now he's got to worry about Kyle just in behind. Harry Wills up onto the podium. The gap to John Williams, 4 seconds. There's bigger gaps to close, but I'm sure Harry Wills is going to be fairly content with P3 at the moment.
Yeah, certainly will. Let's see. DL going to follow his teammate through as well. Down the inside, Lindmo gives plenty of room, and that will be a nice and easy pass up for 4th place. So the Prestanda Nomad 1-2-3 is broken. But now has a couple of other teams inside the top 5, or one other team anyway, inside the top 5. Lindmo very close to losing on the grass at Aintree. Down towards Brooklands they go as we're about to hit the halfway mark in this one. He's nearly heading down the inside of DL. He'll stay behind, and that will be the end of the pro battles for a little while. We'll see whether Wills and DL can now go about catching the top 2, but that will take quite some time if they're able to do it.
I mean, they've got half the race left to go, so still anything can for sure happen. Lewis Boubier versus Didier Vlaming still raging on. Not the best of exits off the exit of the loop for the Lamborghini. Could maybe invite Lewis Boubier to have a bit of a look, forcing the Lamborghini to go defensive even. Bit of a mistake now. The pressure is on Lewis Boubier, keeping him tucked up as long as possible. Now pulling to the outside, going into Brooklands. Brakes late, tries to use the sweeping momentum of the corner to catapult himself into the race lead. Now inside for Luffield, goes a little bit too wide though. So Didier Vlaming is able to hang on, take the outside line through Luffield and hang on to the lead for now. Lewis Boubier had a good effort and had a good opportunity, but yeah, it wasn't quite good enough. And the second time asking to the outside of Brooklands, this time also didn't quite work out for him, but it was a good opportunity and the pressure is still on for Didier Vlaming in first.
Was a good chance, but no way through on this occasion as Chris Jansen has to come down pit lane now. So, race leaders in, and that will kick us all off for pit stops in the second half of this one. Gus Franken is also doing a decent job here in AMP, but Semban Rule is already through into second. Where's Connor Botton gone, is my question. He's down in pit lane, and he has been for quite some time. Connor Botton from second has had problems in the Anfield, I'm afraid, and Stuart Reynolds, race 1 winner, is also in here at Silverstone, so that's a scheduled pit stop, and so it is for Chris Jansen as well, but not one for Connor Botting, I'm afraid, whose pit stop is approaching a minute. And maybe Sam Van Ruler is going to go for another one here. Maybe even 3 in a row.
Potentially so. We follow on still the fight for Didier Vlaming, Lewis Boubier still fighting over it. Marcel Brayton back into the pit lane. Archie Land from the lead in the AMs also in, so the pit stop sequence is well and truly underway once more. Around about halfway through this race, so seems to be easy 50-50 spread. Inside line going into Village, trying to work their way past one of the Ferraris, but yeah, seems to be a fairly easy pit stop sequence here at Silverstone. You do half the race, you come in, you then do the other half of the race on the same amount of fuel. So yeah, at least the pit stop strategy isn't too big of a headache for most of these cars.
Not too much. Let's have a look at what happened to Connor Botting a little bit earlier on. He was running second in the Anfield, and this is an odd place to have it as well. He's really loose through the final couple of corners, smashes the pit wall. Thankfully, doesn't come out into the path of Gus Franken and Sam Van Ruler, who are just behind him there, but that's a real shame for Connor Botting, but something you don't see very often. GT3s never really get that loose on the exit, especially not through the final corner at Silverstone, which is not something you often have to think about.
Yeah, usually, I mean, unless you've already been shaken off the second part of the chicane just before, usually the traction's really easy, just flat out. Maybe if you clip the curb, then yeah, fair enough. You can kick the rear end out a little bit, but obviously the GT3 is aided by the ABS and traction control. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one in all fairness, but at least no one else was caught up in the skirmish. Maybe Connor Botting still feeling the effect of some lack of force feedback, maybe not getting the response from the car, maybe they're not able to correct it afterwards potentially. Anything along those lines, but for sure not great, as he was looking to maybe pursue for a race victory, or at the very least a podium. But yeah, from bad to worse for Connor Botting. He's unable to really contend anymore in this race. Looking to go into the pit lane is Chris Thacker from the fight for the lead. He's obviously hoping that the undercut is going to be a little bit more prevalent compared to the leaders, especially if they start to fight. Maybe Chris Thacker, if he can get some clear air, could bring himself back into the equation.
Let's see. Jim Breitenbach also comes in from Pro-Am. Francois Peugeot getting closer to the back of the pack as well here, which is something we haven't seen so much. He didn't make great progress really quickly in this one, really early, but he is doing so now. And Sam Van Ruler comes in from the lead at the time in the Anfield. He doesn't hold the net race lead. That, of course, going to Archie Lands, who had a bit of a long stop there, 21 seconds. Some drivers like Chris Thacker only having to stop for 14 seconds, so did Stuart Rhinus as well. So there's some real differences here in pit stop times. Breitenbach 21 seconds, Taylor Lane more than 40 seconds now. So there's wild disparities here in pit stop times.
Yeah, very, very strange. Not obviously when they're all coming in at the same point, you wouldn't really expect to see those big gaps. Even if they're coming in at different points, you wouldn't really see the big gaps. Maybe some damage to be repaired, maybe some dinks to be pushed back out. I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of damage that drivers would opt to have repaired. I don't know. Yeah, it's a strange one indeed, and could definitely be detrimental for the end of this race. I have been given permission by Connor Botting himself, because he made the joke himself. He's referred to himself as Connor Bottling, which definitely is not the first time that we've seen that from the young Brit, who we did see not too long ago, facing backwards down the pit straight. But yeah, definitely one of the most important points in the race at the moment, as Stuart Reynolds is trying to make the most of it as it stands and catapult himself past some traffic, because probably the worst thing you want to see after a pit stop is a little bit of traffic, because it's just going to be hot in his progress as he gets his way through one more. But each car that he has to work his way through is another bit of time lost relative to those around him.
Yeah, that's Lewis Boubier into the pit lane now. So Didier Vlaming still leading in Pro-Am. Thomas Pugh also comes in, but Chris Thacker's pit stop there, being 7 seconds shorter than quite a lot of his rivals, is an interesting one and could be very crucial in the final 20 minutes of this race. Just in behind him there, we can see Kurt van Hoornacker into the pit lane as well. Iber van der Linden will carry on, but he's yet to make his stop right now, as we've seen from plenty of the contenders in the other categories as well. So still plenty to play out here, but Sam Van Ruler and Archie Lands are going side by side. This is for the net race lead in AM, and it's Van Ruler who gets to the front, second in race 1, but now first here in race 2 after his victory last week. but Archieland's not ready to give it up that easily just yet. Side by side into the final chicane. The Porsche gets through. There's contact though. They both go. They both go around. The battle for the lead between them. The net race lead anyway sees them both go around. Tony van der Linden is through on both of them as well, although he has to make a pit stop. Carl Pierce is with them now in the Ferrari in the background. A flash of the lights from Archie Lands. That one's going to be discussed between the two of them.
Yeah, definitely not going to be too happy with that one. Sam van Ruler, yeah, after getting himself into the net race lead. Both of them now on the worst end of it. Harry Wills, Car DL, both into the pit lane for the pros. But big talking point. Looking on live timing, Kurt Van Hoenacker, I think, has actually made his pit stop. So he's, from that, been able to inherit the race lead, is he not? So, yeah, a lot of work now for Sam van Ruler. He's got 4.5 seconds up to the race lead. So big... oh, yeah, big mountain ahead of him to climb if he wants to get himself back into contention for the race victory. We're going to have to take another look at it, I think, to really digest as to what's happened there. But Archie Land not wanting to give up the place, Sam van Ruler eager to get the place sorted, but either way, not the way either of those drivers would have wanted things to go about. And well, Silverstone proven to be a fairly chaotic affair in terms of overtakes. It seems that on the rare occasion that they do sort of materialise themselves, drivers sort of getting excited at the fact that they've happened, and well, unfortunately that's caused some things to go into turmoil just a little bit as Chris Chatterton rejoins.
This is for the overall lead, the net race lead. Chris Chatterton had a 5-second longer pit stop than Harry Wills for whatever reason. Wills' pit stop was a little bit shorter there, and it's brought him side by side out with the net race leader. Here they go towards Brooklands. It's not going to be Harry Wills with the outside line. Surely he won't be able to get through as a result of that, and it's going to be Chatterton who will take control of that corner and will take control of this race as well. He's fourth for now, but that should turn into the race lead in a few moments' time, as long as nobody else takes a bit of a shorter pit stop, as Harry Wills and Chris Thacker have both done.
Yeah, so the pit stop disparity is really proven to shake things up just a little bit here, but Chris Chatterton beautifully done then in the pit stop phase and well able to get himself in fourth place as it stands. Obviously, that means the net race leads when everything fills itself out. So Chris Chatterton doing a brilliant job. Harry Wills now has got some work cut out for him. John Williams, we're still waiting for him to come into the pit lane. So we'll wait and see as to what's going to happen as it all rounds itself out. He can limo into the pit lane as well, but only just under 16 minutes left to go in race number 2. Time really is going to test some people in terms of their opportunities and how quickly they're going to start dwindling themselves out. We'll see where Haken Limo comes out, because relative to these guys, he was quite close. Fight in the Pro-Ams as well. Didier Van Mink, Lewis Boubier, Ivo van der Linden. They were 1, 2 and 3 before the pit stop phases. Now 5, 6 and 7 as it stands. Obviously there's still a couple left to filter out, but what hasn't changed is the fact Van Mink, Boubier and van der Linden, well, they've not left each other alone for pretty much for the last 34 minutes and 47 seconds.
So all of those three have pitted, and they are currently the net race leaders. These guys haven't taken tyres. As Joseph Dilworth, the Prestanda Nomad team manager, points out in the YouTube chat, the differences in pit stop times right now are due to taking tyres or not. You can fuel and take tyres at the same time now, but taking tyres will take you slightly longer, quite clearly, than the fuel you need here. Ivo van der Linden just behind will come into the pit lane then, leaving these guys to battle it out in the Pro-Ams. What about Jeremy De Boer and Francois Perdreau? How long is their pit stops going to be? Only 14 seconds for Perdreau and for De Boer as well. They could well come out in front of Chris Thacker here. Are they going to? They're not quite. Chris Thacker will get in front, and it will probably not even be a top 3 for them. So it looks like many of them not taking tyres here in Pro-Am. Yeah, loads of them. Even Thomas Pugh hasn't. Breitenbach is the first driver to have taken tyres in this race here, and he's down in 8th place in the Pro-Ams right now, so he might be able to jump up as a result of that, but for now won't be able to. Chris Chatterton will end up leading in the pros, you'd imagine, unless John Williams also doesn't take tyres at the front. He's pitted right now because Franken didn't take tyres in Am, neither did Kurt Van Hoenacker, and so they're both in front of Sam van Ruler, Carl Pierce and Archie Lands, who are fighting, and those did take tyres. It's a very, very interesting situation with the overall race leader in pit lane now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a race against time for Chris Chatterton. Can he get himself out before John Williams? But was talking to a couple of drivers, and well, the consensus was that taking tyres wasn't necessarily the quickest option. While Silverstone is quite high on degradation, Lucas Romano was complaining about his tyres overheating just a little bit over the course of race 1. It seems that for some, changing tyres was actually the slower option, because not only do you lose a bit of time, but sometimes the older tyres, for whatever reason, was still managing to go quicker over the course of the stint for whatever bizarre reason that was. Here's Chris Chatterton now crossing the start-finish line, and we'll see where John Williams rejoins. Well, it seems that still John Williams has got a fairly comfortable gap. Harry Wills going very wide through turn number 2. That's going to, well, ruin his momentum going into Village. But yeah, for, well, John Williams, he's got a firm grip on this race so far with, well, only 30 minutes left to go. It's, well, his race to lose for sure. Chris Chatterton probably just going to try and get down and keep Harry Wills behind.
Well, this is quite a turn up for it. Big difference in pit times. John Williams 13 seconds, Chatterton nearly 22 in that in pit lane. So that's where that's all come from. In Pro-Am, Chris Thacker leading by a little bit of distance. Lewis Boubier, well, was second. He's now battling with Francois Peugeot. Did De Vlaming all in there. Dean Timms as well. De Vlaming to the outside line at turn 3. Won't be able to do it. And now that's going to stack up everybody with Timms and De Boyver as well. Jeremy De Boyver to the inside. He's going to follow his fellow Lamborghini into the top 5. Well, he was briefly until he lost it on traction. De Boyver slips to 6th again. All of these with short pit stop times there, they are, well, probably not going to be caught, to be honest. Now, looking at things, caught by guys on newer tyres, I should add. In AM, we do have a very interesting situation. Gus Franken and Kurt Van Hoornacker ahead of Sven van Rooyen, who has the advantage, and he is bringing that gap down right now. Just over 10 minutes to go. He could be taking his second win of the season here, but he's got a lot of work to do to manage it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to be careful. Picture in picture, of course, Harry Wills versus Chris Chatterton, the fight for second in the pros. Are there going to be any changes between the pair of them? No changes, of course, but 8 seconds now is the gap to John Williams over the course of the last lap, able to claw back just about a second and a half. So maybe the new tyres might be the way to go. I don't know. It just seems that there's not enough time, there's not enough laps, and obviously catching's one thing, passing definitely is another thing, especially like we've seen at Silverstone. It's been so difficult for people to find a way through. So yeah, not really sure, but here's Harry Wills trying to spark a fight for second place. He gets himself ahead going into turn 3. Is he going to stay ahead going into the loop? Not quite. Now into turn number 4 and not quite able to hang on to it. A good effort though, and well, it seems that between these two the agreement is that they're going to be fighting over second here, particularly in the eyes of Harry Wills.
Oh, down the inside for De Boyver. Oh, got off! Down the inside for De Boyver. Dean Timms turns in, and that sends the Lamborghini off, going down in towards the final chicane. Well, that one's going to be argued about between the two of them, but both of them, I'd imagine, will stand their ground. Dean Timms certainly was standing his ground on the circuit there, sending the Lamborghini off. It was a dive. It wasn't an outrageous dive from way back. He was within his rights to do that, I think, but just got sent off the road. And, well, that one is going to be argued about between the two of them. But I think Dean Timms will very much say that you were the one diving down the inside of me and you ended up off the road. So not a lot else I can do about that one. That is going to be an interesting one to see. If anything is done about that, I wouldn't imagine so.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the stewards will take a proper look at it, see it from all different angles and come up to the best conclusion possible. But yeah, the tension is high, so definitely things are going to start to materialise. The battle between the two Brayton-backs potentially is Marcel is behind Jean. Not quite sure as to what the relationship is between the pair of them, so hopefully we can find out for future rounds, obviously. But they're at the moment battling on track behind Mark Fleming for P8, who is about 4 seconds off Thomas Pugh, who he himself is fighting with Jeremy De Boyver over 6th place. Very close to the rear end of Mark Fleming, though, coming through Woodcote in towards Copse Corner. Not really somewhere you typically go for a move because it is very, very quick, even in these GT cars. Having a good look to the inside, though. Gets given the space by Mark Fleming, who says, you know what, now I'm going to go the long way around and stay in front. Definitely a brave look from Gene Brayton back, but realistically, that was not really anything that was going to happen.
Well, through Maggotts and Beckett's they go in this fight for 8th place. They'll pretty much stay as they were. Well, I think what's been noticeable, though, about these opening couple of rounds now, and the reverse grid is bound to give you this, I suppose, is that no one particularly dominant in any of the classes has really started to emerge from this one. This is Jeremy De Boyver and Thomas Pugh fighting into Stowe corner. De Boyver picking himself back up after the incident at 1 lap ago at this section of corners. He stays in 6th place, but nobody in any category has really emerged as a dominant force in the opening couple of rounds, and that's definitely a good thing for the remaining 8 rounds, where we'll hopefully enjoy a great season to come as a result of that.
For sure, it just means that obviously the reverse grid and qualifying takes a bit more precedence, because as we've seen today, everyone is so close that overtaking is proven itself to be quite difficult. It's fantastic that everyone is so close. It's nice that we've got a very competitive field where pretty much anyone can be successful given the right circumstances. So looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season progresses. The fight for 4th, Haken Limbo versus Maggots and Beckett's no way through for the Lamborghini on this particular occasion. Harry Wills, the Canadian's teammate, still fighting with Chris Chatterton over 2nd through Maggots and Beckett's, then obviously Chapel Curve. The Lamborghini does seem to be quite decent in a straight line and is looking quite close to the rear end of that Mercedes. So through the hangar straight, flash the headlights maybe to distract him a little bit, whatever the tactics are there for Car DL. Doesn't seem to be quite close enough to go for a move into Stowe corner. So the fight stagnating just a little bit for now, and well, still Silverstone proving itself to be a fairly difficult circuit to overtake. And well, in the bottom right of your screen there you can see Harry Wills versus Chris Chatterton, who, well, the gap to John Williams, they've not gained, they've not really lost. So with, well, just under 7 minutes left to go in this race, John Williams, he's, well, very much in control after the pit stops.
Absolutely. You'd think that John Williams, after that really short pit stop, would be giving up time to Chatterton, but in fact he's actually only extending his lead at this stage, really. Is Williams over Chatterton. Wills now on slightly older tyres, so he's doing well to hang on to the back of Chatterton. Lindmo certainly on old tyres here. Cardiel and Stuart Reynolds, as a result, are going to presumably get into the top 5 here, both of them. And Lindmo going to do well to finish inside that top 5 if he manages it. Cardiel now out of entry, so close, but this is what he struggled with last race as well. He struggled with real conviction and making the move maybe as quickly as he could have done. There was a half chance there at Brooklands. Didn't even really give it a look. He's waiting for that real full 100% chance, as opposed to taking a chance on maybe one of these half chances. He's going to get another good run out of Luffield. It's difficult to make one into Cop, but I mean, he's got to be a little bit more aggressive maybe with his moves. He's been very cautious when he gets to the back of someone that's slower than him, and could very much at least have a look into some of these corners, especially Brooklands on this lap here. He definitely could have put Limbo off by having a look there.
Yeah, maybe just not wanting to risk it, as you said. I mean, it is just a case sometimes of not wanting to risk it and going for the high percentage chance moves where you 100% know that the move is going to work, particularly with Stuart Reynolds looming in the background. Harry Wills versus Chris Chatterton. Is there going to be any changes between the pair of them into Stowe? But yeah, for sure, it might just be a confidence issue, maybe not trusting the car or himself enough to get the move stuck. I don't know, yeah, it's just a case of there's been opportunities presenting themselves, he's really wanted to take them, and well, in a race like this, at a circuit like this and a competitive grid like this, you've really got to take any chance that you can really get, whether the risk is sort of 60-40, 50-50. Sort of, I guess it is sometimes worth just taking that risk, depends as to who you are as a driver and what you want to do. But Harry Wills still on the back of Chris Chatterton, doing his best to maybe move himself up a place, but 5 minutes left to go, only a handful of laps. I think, well, we're on to the, it's probably the third last lap. So yeah, definitely not the most amount of time as Cardiel looks to the outside of Haken Limbo and to reach turn number 3. There's confident, if you ever saw it. Now 3 wide potentially with Stuart Reynolds now to the inside for the 43 Lamborghini. That's definitely one way to go up into 4th place, and we said he maybe lacked confidence there. Definitely not lacking any to the outside of T3.
Well, he was very late on the brakes, and you can see the effects of that shorter pit stop. That longer pit stop for DL now coming into his own, because he broke so late for turn 3 there, but still was able to pull it up in time. And still Lindmo wasn't able to hold him back. So outside the top 5 now for the Mercedes. 2 Lamborghinis back into it again to give us 3 manufacturers in there. So that's all good news. But there we are. DL now going to have a job holding back Stuart Reynolds as well. Race 1 winner already on the back of his teammate going up in towards Copse. He very nearly went to the outside line before there as well. There was contact made. DL pushed very much out wide. And through will go Reynolds up into 4th place. That's something you don't see between teammates very often, but thankfully contact didn't result in disaster there.
Yeah, obviously the golden rule of racing is don't crash into your teammate, don't cause anything a little bit wide through the second part through Magnussen Beckett's for Cardiel, brings the Norwegian back onto his case and potentially brings him side by side as they run their way through the hangar straight. The Mercedes definitely with the advantage, so Cardiel after getting himself up into fourth loses 2 places and finds himself at the back end of this train. Nick Limo and the Mercedes back in front now with Stuart Reynolds really having a good day for a driver that didn't have much practice. He's really catapulted himself into the limelight and maybe into a championship leading position. We'll have to wait and see as to what's happened there. Thomas Pugh, Gene Brayton back side by side into Cop's corner. Gene Brayton back on the inside, side by side. The Eclipse Racing Team BMW holds it now to the inside of going through Maggots and Beckett's. They're still going to go committed at it side by side as they run their way through for 7th or 8th place, I should say, rather. Now into the next left, then the right. Beautiful stuff between the pair of them. Gene Brayton back just about managing to hang on there. How they're still not going to contact, I don't know, but well, there's 2 times through Maggots and Beckett's that we've seen now, and both times actually have actually come off quite well.
Well, that was a fantastic battle through Maggots and Beckett's, but it's still not over. Outside line for Fleming. Brayton back making sure that he couldn't quite close the door there. And they will stay side by side. Outside line again for Brayton back with his teammate not so far behind. Oh, contact made. And that was Brayton back being pushed around by Stuart Rhinus there. And there's contact as well between the other two. Fleming, I believe, has been overtaken now by Brayton back. Has he? It looks like it. Yes, he has, and it might have been a result of the contact as well, but through goes Ian Brayton back, and unfortunately down goes Marcel Brayton back. A real turn of fortunes there, but that was clumsy contact really into the final chicane.
Yeah, it definitely could have been avoided, but yeah, those things happen. The fight between Chris Chatterton and Harry Wills has not gone anywhere at all. Bit of lap traffic to negotiate maybe puts Harry Wills all over the rear end of the Mercedes, forcing Chatterton to go defensive. Now Harry Wills has the advantage. He spun car in the middle of the hangar straight. That is a strange place to park it because it's a straight line. Surely you can't spin or crash on a straight. That's bizarre.
That's Jarmo Sastamoinen in the Audi who's off, and he's dropping down the Audi. He's still trying to get back going as well. Meanwhile, Harry Wills is to the outside line of Chris Chatterton. The two give each other room. Wills was very nervous of being closed off there through the final section of corners, but he just about managed to avoid it. Now then, over the line, one last lap here for these guys, and a big gap to John Williams as well. John Williams actually has lost a bit of time on this last lap. He nearly did a 2:02 there, which is a long way back from where he was in previous laps. I hope he's not going to run out of fuel in this one. I hope he's put enough in to get to the end here, but Chris Chatterton for now is holding on to second place on the last lap.
Yeah, indeed so maybe it's going to be a case of Chris Chatterton reeling John Williams in if he's having to really heavily lift and go. 6 seconds now is the gap, but that is definitely going to come down. Obviously onto the final lap of this race means John Williams hasn't got long to fuel save, but could still be the case. One of the Ferraris stricken off to the outside of Brooklyn City Dynamic versus Dean Timms, fighting over 4th place in the Pro-Ams. Dean Timms all over the rear end. Thomas Pugh versus Jeremy DeBoy. That is a big swing there from Dean Timms. Brings him to the inside, though, going through Abbey versus the previous race leader in the Pro-Ams. And well, that's a fairly easy affair, but that was a very harsh swing to the right-hand side there from Timms.
Yeah, it all looked very aggressive there, and I was slightly fearing whatever would have happened down into the first corner there, but thankfully it was all fine in the end. 5.5 seconds for John Williams. Clearly he's just holding back a little bit towards the end here, but the battle's ready for second between Chatterton and Wills. There it is. You can see, is it going to be a Pastana Nomad 1-2, or is Harry Wills going to get himself up to that second place here right at the very end? John Williams is coasting this one home. He's going very, very slowly, but fortunately for him, he had quite a big lead to start with, and so he can just enjoy these final couple of moments. He's going to win race 2 here at Silverstone in the IMB World Series League GT3 Championship. The feature round goes to him. John Williams winning it with nice strategy through the middle and enough pace to get to the end as well. Chris Chatterton rounds out a Prestana Nomad 1-2 with Harry Wills rounding off the podium there in third as well. Chris Thacker looks like he's going to take it in Pro-Am, but in the Amfield, it's all of a sudden closed up right at the very end between Gus Franken, Kurt Van Hoornacker and Sem van Ruler as well, who might well be scrapping for those podium places. right on the very last lap. I thought they were just going to run out of time, really. But apparently not. They are going to fight this one out. Chris Thacker in the end did his fighting earlier on. He's got a comfortable margin to take to the line as well. And he will win race 2 at Silverstone in the Pro-Ams. But who will win in Am is the real question. Further back, Gus Franken just coming out of Chapel now. And Van Hoornak has definitely got a better run there. He'll look to the inside, but the Ferrari just hasn't really got the legs here. Sven van Rooler's stuck behind as well. He knows that he needs the two in front to battle to have any chance here. Franken very defensive when he didn't need to be into Stowe Corner. The three of them covered by a blanket into the final corners of the race. Sven van Rooler once more than second this time. He had that in race 1. He didn't want it again. Outside line for Van Hoornakker. He can't quite get through. It's going to be Gus Franken just about taking it ahead of Kurt Van Hoornakker. Or is it? It's very close over the line. Sven van Rooler rounds off the podium. It was an exciting finish in Am, but Gus Franken just about held it to the line.
Beautiful stuff there. Fantastic three-way fight to the line between all of them there. Sven van Rooler definitely would have wanted more, but retains 3 races and 3 podiums in the IMB WSL Season 5. Beautiful stuff. And obviously great respect, Kurt Van Hoornakker. Close, but not quite close enough. Gus Franken taking a victory here. So, right away from Gus Franken for the AMs. That's definitely a good combination and shows how competitive all 3 fields are over the course of this season. And, well, definitely was an interesting display of racing here today, both over the course of race 1 and race 2. And, well, all I have to say to that one is, well, bring it on, bring on the rest of the season. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Be another sprint round next at Imola before we go back to endurance racing in a couple of weeks' time, but we'll get to that when we do. Let's have a little check over the race results before we go any further and have a quick chat to some of these drivers. We'll be chatting to John Williams first. He won by just over 5 seconds ahead of Chris Chadson and Harry Wills. Stuart Reynolds and Hakan Limbo inside the top 5. Cardiel dropped out of it on the last lap. Johannes Trout 7th and Taylor Lane 1 lap down. Lucas Romano will indeed score points, I believe. James Pearce and Joe Hudson more than 10 laps down, the both of them. In Pro-Am, it was a similar winning margin for Chris Thacker. Lewis Boubier just over 5 seconds behind. Francois Pedro got up for his second podium of the day with Dean Timms 4th over Didier Vlamic. Then it was Jeremy De Boyer in 6th ahead of Thomas Pugh, Jim Breitenbach, Stuart Riders and Ivo van der Linden in the top 10. Mark Fleming and Marcel Breitenbach inside the top 12 and all on the lead lap. Simon Dodd and Timothy van der Broek having problems during the race. In the Anfield, Gus Franken just about got in front of Kurt Van Hoornakker and Sven van Rooler to the line in a very, very close race. Archie Lambs and Carl Pearce were all within 3 seconds. Jeroen Reigns, the final driver, to finish on the lead lap. Timo McKeown came from the back to 7th as Navarro de Boer finished 8th. Jürgen Knockaert and Tony van der Linden finished inside the top 10. Jonas Sastermoinen and Jorn Pellenus also got over the line near the leaders. James Slate's a couple of laps down. Matthias Stiggerud and Connor Botting quite a few more laps down at the end. Well, that is it for the racing. Now let's have a quick chat to a couple of these drivers. First of all, John Williams, the overall race winner here at race 2. John, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. A nice win in the end and a nice gap to have at the end as well. But the pit stop times were very much the talking point through the middle of that race. Just how were you able to keep your pit stop time down so much compared to some of the rest of the field?
Hello guys, cheers for having me. Fuel saving. I don't know how I do it. I just can fuel save a lot. And I believe some of us took tyres. I just took left tyres. I was practicing yesterday just taking lefts only. How to wear them in quickly, getting back up to temperature. And it didn't cost me no time because 2 tyres only take 25 litres and I took 28, so yeah. And
given the fact that you did take 2 rather than the 4 that we believe a lot or some of the others did, how was the balance of the car after that? Because we know it's never not. You'd always like to take 4 tyres. If time was no object, everyone wants 4 tyres all the time. But what's it like taking 2 in the middle of a race like this?
To be honest, it's actually not that bad. You just got to come off the throttle early, light on the brakes, just for the first lap or so. And then, surprisingly, they get up to temperature really quickly.
It was a nice drive from you, John. Congratulations on the win here at Silverstone tonight. And thanks very much for coming to chat to us.
Can I do a shout out?
Of course, yep.
Yeah, Nomad, of course, and just Uke for getting a P2 also, and Zoo. He held off Harry, I think, which I think if Harry got past him, that would have been might have been a different story at the end because he had some pace on him tonight.
Certainly. John, congratulations on the win. Thanks very much for chatting to us as well after that drive to P1. Let's go down to Pro-Am and Chris Thacker, who takes the win there by a similar margin. Yes. Chris Thacker, who takes the win by a similar margin in Pro-Am. Chris, welcome to the booth as well. Good to have you here. Reverse grid racing is always good fun to watch. How was that second race for you, though?
It was interesting. Obviously the pace was quite good in the first race, so I got a little slow down near the end because I was trying to push to get past Francois. But pace was good all week, so I was kind of looking forward to this. I only live 5 minutes from the track anyway, so it's kind of a home race for me as well. So in the mix of starting back in the grid as such, you just got to bide your time a bit. If there's an opportunity, go with it. There's a couple of little incidents behind me. I think a couple of times I had to check up with the guys in front, but yeah, all in all, just trying to get a decent pace across the board, really, and that was it. And then I caught up to the group of 4, and then I was like, right, okay. I felt like I was a bit quicker, so I pitted early, took 2 left tyres, filled the fuel up to whatever the level was, can't remember, and then went again, did some fast laps, and come out just in front. So it worked out well. It's always good fun in reverse grid.
It certainly is good fun to watch. How are you feeling about the season now after you've got a couple of rounds in? We've had the endurance format, we've had the sprint and feature format as well now. Last week didn't go quite so well for you, but I don't think the Nordschleife is representative of anything else in motorsport. So how are you feeling about the season now as you can put that race behind you early on and move forward with a few more sprint and features now?
I'm glad you brought that one up. I wasn't really looking forward to that one myself. I've never really driven that in anger, but we all got to do it. I made a few mistakes in that. That wasn't really, let's say, I was hoping I'd get to the end, but it is what it is. Coming to the real, as I class it, proper racetracks as such in this case. I think going forward, I'm quite excited for the season. Last year was my first season in here. I did all right until the last kind of 4 or 5 whacks to stop because I had a shoulder injury. But I seem to have some decent pace last year. I'd like to think, going forward from now, we can push forward with the team as well. We've got a couple of guys in there as well, obviously God and Mark, and then hopefully we can crack on and make some better results later on. So keep it consistent through the year is the main aim, right?
Absolutely. You better tread carefully, by the way, not calling the Nordschleife a proper race circuit, by the way.
Well,
you'll have purists with pitchforks next
coming
to your house.
For me, I'll get lost after about 4 turns. So for me, I don't even know it was a track, to be fair. I found more walls than forests, so it was good fun.
It's certainly difficult to get your head around. I can't say I've ever raced well around there either. So there we are. It's very tricky. Chris, congratulations on your drive tonight, though. It was great to see you winning here in race 2, and thanks very much for chatting to us.
Lovely stuff, guys. Thanks for the broadcast and stuff. Appreciate it. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks very much. We'll see you next week. Chris Thacker, victorious here today in race 2 at Silverstone, just ahead of Lewis Boubier in the Pro-Am field. It was about 5 seconds by the end. Lewis, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. How do you feel about that second place? Are you pleased that you were able to get there by the end?
Oh yeah, coming from practice and first race where I was so far off the pace to come in, good starting place. I'll have to give all of the credit to my performance from where I started, but to keep clean, have a really good fight with D-Day. I have to give him credit. It was great defending. Then Chris obviously jumped us both in the pit stop, but I hung on and kept second. So, and after the disappointment of Nürburgring dropping out from second, I'm very happy with this result.
We've noticed 2 things, by the way, that are specific to the Pro-Am category and doesn't apply anywhere else. And I don't know if you can tell us why either of these are the case. First of all, everybody's in a BMW for some reason. Don't know what that's about, but anyway, there's a lot of BMWs about. And also, everybody stays very, very close together, all in one long line from first to about 10th for the start of the race. Do you know why either of those things are happening in Pro-Am, particularly more than any other class?
Well, I'm not sure about the BMW, but I did spend both races stuck behind a Lamborghini for most of it, so yes. I'm not sure about that. But then Pro-Am, I would think, because they can go all the way, and then in AMs it's very difficult or different in performance. But then in Pro-Ams, we're all very similar, high rating and therefore talent, and we all know we want to get to the end of the season being consistent. So there's not as much risky moves. It's all quite fair so far. So I think that's probably why everyone's quite in a line and quite similar.
Absolutely, it's great to watch though, and great that you're a part of it as well. Congratulations on second place, Lewis, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yep, let's see you guys.
Thanks very much, Lewis Bouvier, second place here today in the Pro-Ams. And a little bit further down, only one AM driver has come to join us, and it's race 1 winner, Navarro de Boiva, who joins us now. Navarro, welcome to the booth, good to have you here. Unfortunately, race 2 didn't go quite so well for you, although it wasn't bad. I'd like to go back to race 1 though, and the end of that one, because that turned out, of course, very well for you. How were those first 25 minutes and just, holding on and defending from loads of people for the first position?
Whoa, that was really fast. Can you repeat one? I didn't understand, sorry.
Okay, I'll be a bit slower. Talking about the first race, how did you find the first race after defending from people behind you for so long?
Yeah, it was very difficult to defend because I don't know who it was, but I think it was Jarmo who was behind me. So we went with 3 cars into 1 second, I guess, and my tactic was waiting to the last lap and then overtake the first car, and that happened, so I'm very happy.
And in terms of the season as a whole, what are you hoping? We're only 2 rounds in, of course. What are you hoping for from the season?
I hope for a podium place, but nothing says no. We'll wait after the season.
Yes, we look forward to seeing it. Navarro, congratulations on the win in race 1 here tonight, and thanks very much for coming to chat to us as well.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thanks very much, Navarro de Boiva there. First place in race 1, a little bit further down in race 2, but a good evening for him overall. Zach, it was a good evening for us overall as well. We very much enjoyed it. Sprint and feature racing is back once again in the GT3 Championship. It's very good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw 2 very, very good races, it must be said, and a very, very good evening of racing action as well. Kicking off the second round of the season and rounding it off now after the end of race 2. And Imola in a week's time, we'll have to say as well. Again, as I said, after race 2, looking forward to it. This season is going to be so good, as it's already proven to be, and hopefully it's only going to get better from here.
Absolutely. Join us again in 1 week's time for Imola, our second sprint and feature format race of the season. And a couple of weeks after that, we'll be back to the endurance format as well. It will keep changing throughout the season, and I very much hope you will stay with us for it. Make sure you join us for the US broadcast going on a little bit later on tonight as well. We're back on the same schedule again. There will be a couple of differences throughout the season, but I believe this is one that is not a difference. And you will see racing at Silverstone later as well. So make sure you join us for that. If not, then make sure you come back same time, same place next week for the next round of this championship. But for now, from me, Ewan O'Leary, Zach Sweeney alongside me, it's goodbye for now.
Bye.